Check my email for what? If that's not the one. But you know, why the phone's going to open the story? I did not do that.
It is so down. All right.
I'm just like waiting for it. Wait. One minute, 5 minutes, 2 minutes.
Two-ish.
Two-ish. So closer to 3 or closer to 1?
Two-ish.
Sound check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou, ko ta tū mai I runga I te kaupapa. Māku tētahi paku whakamoimiti hei tuku mō tātou. Kia inoi tātou. Kia whaikororia kia koe ihoa o ngā mano. Tū a uriuri, whā ioio, ki tonu te rangi me te whenua, I tau kororia nui, matua, tama, wairua tapu me ngānera pono, me te māngai hei tautoko mai, ai nei, ake nei, ai. Yo.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon. I'm Clinton Nordia, the Group Controller for the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group, leading the response here in Whakatane. This afternoon, we've got with us Mayor Judy Turner from Whakatane District Council, who will address you shortly. And thereafter, we have Police Commissioner Mike Bush, who's joined by Colonel Ryan McKinstry from New Zealand Defence Forces, who will speak to this morning's operation on the recovery on Whakaari White Island. So we'll take questions at the end. So at this point, I'd like to invite Mayor Judy Turner.
Good afternoon. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the weight of the situation that we've all been facing in the past week. In particular, I wish to acknowledge all the families of those who have experienced loss, those who are injured, and their loved ones. And I'd like to express the collective relief and the gratitude on behalf of our community in hearing that 6 bodies have been recovered from Whakaari today. My heartfelt thanks goes to all those who have played a part in this important mission. And I would like to thank Ngāti Awa for their leadership and guidance in enabling these processes to embrace tikanga Māori. Let us continue to stand together in support of one another, and let us show one another love and kindness as these efforts continue and we navigate these challenging times together. I'll now pass on to the Commissioner.
Kia ora koutou whānau, ngā mihi te iwi o Ngāti Awa, kia ora koutou. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge everybody that's been involved in today's operation to recover and return 6 loved ones to their whānau. This entire event has been a traumatic and harrowing event for the community of Whakatane, but particularly for the friends, family, whānau of those directly affected. Today, New Zealand Defence Force and police and other emergency services were able to recover those 6 people and return them to their loved ones. The operation today went to plan, and I would like to recognise the expertise of the New Zealand Defence Force staff who, supported by New Zealand Police staff and other emergency services staff completed today's mission. But it's not over yet. The operation was not without risk. And thanks to the sound planning and the expertise of all staff involved, again, it went to plan. The environment that those staff encountered was unpredictable, challenging, and those staff showed absolute courage in order to ensure that those 6 people were returned to their loved ones. Unfortunately, there remains 2 more people that we need to find so we can also return them. So this operation will continue. We will, and we are this afternoon, returning with an aerial search of Whakaare to see if we can identify anyone else on the island. And we are also, right now, deploying our dive team to search the surrounding waters. We will continue to search for these 2 people. I want to thank everyone for their focus, everyone for their support, and again, everyone who was involved today for their courage in order to ensure that these 6 people were returned to their loved ones. I'll be available later for questions. Kia ora. I would like, if I could, to introduce Colonel Ryan McKinstry, who is one of the senior defence officers on site today.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We in the New Zealand Defence Force are united in our grief for those who have been killed, injured and traumatised by the tragic events on Whakaare White Island. And our thoughts are with the victims and their whānau and families. We acknowledge the spiritual and cultural significance of this event and the imperative to at all times treat the deceased and the location with dignity and respect. We acknowledge the leadership of the New Zealand Police and other agencies involved in recovery operations to date, and as well as the heroic efforts of the medical staff across New Zealand treating the survivors. We cannot downplay the risk involved in this operation, and I want to acknowledge the efforts of all of those who have placed themselves in dangerous places today to achieve some resolution for the families and the community. In particular, I want to acknowledge those members of the New Zealand Defence Force who conducted body recovery actions today in close proximity from the ground, the sea and the air of Whakaare White Island. The conditions and terrain on the island were difficult, and given the potential for another eruption, we had planned on how we could recover the 6 identified deceased while minimising our time on the island due to the assessed risks in carrying out this operation. And we do acknowledge that the recovery operation is ongoing, and we will continue to work with the New Zealand Police and provide our support. It is important for all to understand that behind the plan that was put in effect today lies a broad range of New Zealand Defence Force capabilities and teams of personnel who ensure our people are well prepared to go into dangerous places in support of their community and our nation. And this has ranged from personnel who specialise in imagery analysis to those operating our military assets and those who went into the island today. And over the past week, This support has included C-130 air transport aircraft, King Air air transport aircraft, P-3 airborne surveillance aircraft, NH-90 helicopters providing rotary wing support, which included patient transfer on Monday. And we want to acknowledge also their crews and the ground support staff from the Royal New Zealand Air Force. From our Royal New Zealand Navy, on scene has been the HMNZS Wellington, her rigid hull inflatable boats, an embarked SH-2G Sea Sprite helicopter and a second helicopter from Auckland. This helicopter provided rotary wing support and surveillance of the island, and also their respective crews and support staff from the Royal New Zealand Navy. From our Army, today personnel from our Explosive Ordnance Disposal Squadron with their specialist hazardous material equipment and training. Also from the Army, Mortuary Affairs and Disaster Victim Identification teams have been assisting our civil authorities here in Whakatane and in Auckland. We've also had personnel from our deployable Joint Interagency Task Force who have performed command and control functions in support of these recovery efforts. For those members of the New Zealand Defence Force, they serve with a sense of duty and a sense of pride in being able to help our fellow New Zealanders and the citizens of the world. We'll do this when our specialist skills are needed. It should not be forgotten that when they join the New Zealand Defence Force, they do so knowing that they could be required to be placed in harm's way when New Zealand requires it. Thank you.
We'll take some questions now.
Colonel, there was a police launch that was part of this operation. What did they form up? Sorry, you maybe just stand.
Oh, apologies.
If you're asking about the police launch, you might direct that to me. So the police launch is deployed in support of our defence staff, but it's also there with our dive team who are currently deployed searching around the island for one or two of the remaining bodies that we need to find.
It's been there since the beginning of the day, though, the police launch. Were the divers deployed early, or is only having not been able to find the remaining two bodies?
DR's been there for some time, but I can tell you that they are deployed as we speak.
Commissioner, what do you think happened to those two bodies? What's your best guess?
There's two possibilities. We do believe that at least one of them is in the water, and the other one we are unsure, so it only leaves two possibilities. One is still on the island and we haven't located them, or they too are in the water.
Can I ask the Colonel, please, what were the conditions on the island today for those that were there? Like there was concern about further activity. Can we hear what it was like?
Yes, and I'll defer to the Colonel, but I can also say that from the information we have, the first thing we did was around our risk assessment today was talk to the geoscientists to understand the condition of the volcano and get permission to enter. That was the first thing. Second thing is that it is rough and difficult terrain. But if you want any more details, the Colonel has probably spoken to those that went onto the island, so I'll pass over to him.
Commissioner, just before you do, sorry, just while you're there, what do you, about those families, there is possibly a family or two families who have gone away possibly unresolved. So what's been their reaction to that, given that there are two bodies that haven't been recovered?
Yes, so we've got a process in terms of the 6 today. So we will have a very thorough process which will be overseen by the coroner to identify those 6. So we can't say which whānau belong to the 2 missing people until we go through that process. But the assurance we give to family and whānau is that we will continue to put every effort into locating the remaining 2 missing people.
So those 6 that have been identified? The 6 that were retrieved today are Australian citizens. Are you able to shed any light on that?
I'm aware of that commentary. I would say it's too early to say. We've got a process in hand. to identify those 6 that we've recovered. As you know, we will be transporting those 6 to Auckland for that process later on today.
How will they be transported to Auckland?
So they'll be transferred by hearse.
Sorry, Colonel, would you mind walking us through from the beginning? Were they all EOD? And just please, as much as you can, a report on we've been hearing all week how the conditions on the ground would have made it extremely difficult for anyone to walk or breathe or see anything. So if you could shed any light on that, and also how you managed to communicate with them all while they were on the island, and how long they were on the island for.
Right, and I think some of that might tie into the previous question that was asked, and I'll try to address that for you. The conditions on the island were challenging, and they were challenging from the point of departure this morning. When we made our assessment of go, no-go on whether it was safe to do so this morning, our assessment in consultation with GNS Science was that there was a 6% chance in any 3-hour period that the volcano may erupt. 6% chance in any 3-hour period. That met our threshold, our health and safety requirements, that it would be reasonably safe enough for us to put people on the island. Secondly, they were wearing, we would call our personal protective equipment, which you can imagine is paint a picture for you, is a yellow hazmat suit with a hood. It has a closed circuit breathing apparatus system, a gas mask, so that the operator, while they're all on the island, can operate within a closed system and be protected from any gases that may be present. There has been testing, and there was testing conducted throughout the operation before our personnel left the jetty and ventured into the centre of the island to ensure that the gas was at a level that the equipment would protect them from.
So even before they stepped onto the terrain?
From the jetty, they conducted that assessment.
Colonel, we heard that there was a lot of reconnaissance and photographs that were taken by GNS cameras and things like that, which indicated roughly where those 6 bodies were. Was it easy to find them?
We had good quality mapping that we had briefed our teams on, so they knew the general area of where those persons lay. I have not had a chance yet to debrief that team. They are still making their way back from the ship. I think we can provide some more detail around that question in the future. But the operation did progress in accordance with our planning timelines, which strongly suggests to me that the acquisition and finding of those bodies went according to plan.
Colonel, there have been some descriptions of the terrain, the crater in the area where the bodies were, that the ash was perhaps knee-deep. Were those descriptions accurate, or can you paint a picture for us that we can't see from the pictures what it's like there?
No, certainly. At this time, I can't, until I debrief the team that was on the island, I can't answer that question for you.
Colonel, whereabouts are the recovered bodies at the moment? What's the timeline in terms of getting them to Auckland?
Would you like to?
So thank you, Mike. The bodies are all being transported from HMNZS Wellington to the airport, where they'll be placed in coffins and hearses and transported as quickly as possible once they have been farewelled by whānau. So there will be a part of the operation is to ensure that families get to receive their loved ones in a general sense, because of course they haven't been identified, and then farewell them to Auckland.
So you're looking at later this evening before they make that journey?
That's the timeline.
Colonel, can you talk to us about the temperament of these men? Are they men? Are they women? You work with them closely. Can you talk to us about who they are as people?
Yeah, certainly. The personnel have come from our. If you're talking specifically about those that were on the island, I must stress that there are a lot of NZDF people involved here. But those specifically on the island came from our explosive ordnance disposal squadron. There was an 8-person team that consisted of 6 men and 2 females. There was a second 8-person team on standby should they be required to replace the initial team on the island. As far as their temperament goes, these individuals are highly selected. Firstly, they volunteer for service in the New Zealand Defence Force, and then they volunteer again for service in the explosive ordnance disposal trade. Some of them were not explosive ordnance disposal personnel. They were New Zealand Army medics who have been through a coursing that we put them through so that they can attain what we would call an operational level of capability on the personal protective equipment that is needed to sustain their life while in these types of environments. As far as their demeanour is concerned, because of the bomb disposal nature of the trade, you can take it, they're very level-headed individuals.
And how long, sorry, how long were you on, was it 3 hours, sorry? How long, you didn't answer?
The duration of time on the island was up to 4 hours, and that was limited by the ability of the closed-circuit breathing apparatus to sustain an oxygen feed.
Sorry, how does this compare to other missions that your people have been on?
It's unique, but I think that unique operations are what an organisation like the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Squadron gets involved in. It's actually on standby in New Zealand 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to support our New Zealand police in the neutralisation of improvised explosive devices, chemical situations, radiological situations. And so that's what they exist and train for, and they're ready at all times. So unique, but well within their level of capability.
Can you explain like how you were communicating with them while they were on the island? I imagine there was monitoring on all kinds of levels, and what the fail-safes were, even though it was 6%, if that 6% was, you know.
So we were communicating by radio, and that radio was connected to the rigid hull inflatable boats and to the ship, and that also allowed us to maintain connectivity with GNS Science so that we could get updates on the state of the island.
Colonel, back to that expertise of your staff on the island there, that they're dealing often with machines, or you say improvised devices. They were confronted with a terrible human sight, I'm sure. What was it like for them to deal with something perhaps as horrific as that?
Without doubt, those individuals will have experienced things today that will require some level of discussion and debrief with them. I can't right now speak to that because I haven't had the opportunity yet to debrief them. But it's within our standard operating procedures that we will provide the debriefing and medical type support that they will need if they have any challenges as a result of their day on the island.
Is it possibly the first time a mission like this has ever been performed on Earth, going into a crater, an active crater and retrieving bodies? How do you personally feel about what your people have achieved today?
I'm incredibly proud of these individuals. I'm proud of everyone from the NZDF who's been involved in allowing this to occur, but I'm also proud of the entire response that has enabled this to occur. Hold on, I'm getting a question over here that hasn't been answered.
Sorry, if you did find the 2 other people on the island, would you run a similar operation that you had today, or would you adjust it in the future?
That is I think, an operational question that's in front of us. I wouldn't presuppose how we might do that based on what we don't know or the known unknowns at the moment. However, I would say that while we were on the island with the remaining air supply that the team had, they did conduct a search of some prepared zones where we thought there might be some success, and we were unfortunate that we weren't able to find anybody.
Were there any cameras at the time? Could you see what was happening as it was?
No.
On what basis are you confident that one of the bodies is in the water? Is that anecdotal from people fleeing the island at the time?
No, we're very confident. One body has been sighted in the water, and that's why we're diving in that particular area at the moment.
When was the body sighted? Was it on the day of the explosion?
No, sometime later. I can get you the detail, but I don't want to make an estimate, but we can get that detail to you.
Can you confirm, Commissioner, that an attempt was made to try and recover that body?
Yes, that's correct. There was an attempt to recover that body. It was unsuccessful, and that's the area we're diving in at the moment.
And that was because of the conditions?
It was because of the weather conditions, absolutely. It was, to say it was choppy would be an understatement. And, pardon? Not too far. I can't give you the exact detail, but we're really happy to provide that in detail.
And that was on Tuesday, Commissioner?
I believe it was on Tuesday, but again, I'd clarify that before confirming.
I mean, we're making the decision to actually go after these bodies. How much did the memory of Pike River dwell upon people in the police force?
The decision to mount today's operation was very well prepared, very well planned, and I can say that a decision to deploy this morning was a decision reached by myself and the Chief of Defence last night, having spoken to other very experienced Defence Force and police staff to ensure, A, that we mitigated as best as possible every risk, even though you can't eliminate them, but also to ensure that we had another number of fail-safes in place, so that the planning included contingency as to whether to go or not to go.
That's how you did it, without why you did it.
The reason we did this was absolutely to ensure that those loved ones were reunited with their family.
As we're starting to turn a bit towards Pike River, I want to ask one question. The disparity here is that there was still a chance of saving lives in the first couple of days of Pike River, and police chose not to go in. In this case, it was confirmed that all people were dead, and police and military decided that they would go in. That is quite a disparity there. Is what you have done today an acknowledgement perhaps that what you did in Pike River was a mistake?
I can't comment specifically on Pike River. I wasn't directly involved. But what I can say is, from what I know, is that all of the leaders across that operation considered the risk in terms of deploying into that, as we have today.
Can we take final questions, please?
Can I ask Joe a question, please?
That's up to Joe, whether he wants... Joe, are you prepared to take a question?
Kia ora.
Joe, can I ask you about the Ngāti Awa response to this? You're missing one of your own at this time, but you've taken the time to look after others. Manihuri, can you talk us through how Ngāti Awa has responded with this?
Tikanga protocols determine our behaviours as a people. And one of those protocols and behaviours is absolute respect for whatever the situation might be. And so Ngāti Awa has come together to wrap around the bereaved families and all of those that have been affected by this tragedy. There's a fine line between LORE law and LAW. And I get the sense that those have meshed very well to come to this outcome that we have today.
Are you proud of how Ngāti Awa has, as a people, how you've conducted yourself while you wait for one of your own to come home?
We have a saying in Māoridom, kare te kumara e kōrero mo tōna reka. The sweet potato doesn't talk about itself, and our role is to ensure that we have protocols in place to respect and look after those who have been affected.
Do you have any message for that whānau that is still waiting?
I'm not sure who it is, but we are treating all of our deceased the same. Kia ora.
Right,
thank you, everyone.
A little bit about the reaction of the families today when those bodies were recovered. What about your team? What about the police who have been working on the Defence Force as well?
Look, right now, Mike, thank you for asking. They're very focused on the task, but there will be a time to reflect and also to ensure that we look after all of our people that also share in this trauma and the tragedy. But right now, they're very focused on the job in front of them. But thank you for asking.
Are you confident that the 6 bodies will be able to be identified?
That process is in front of us. I'd like to say yes, and in all likelihood the answer is yes, but it would be very irresponsible of me to give a solid answer. But in these circumstances, with good forensics and everything else, we normally do ensure that we identify every victim so they are returned to their loved ones.
Were standard identification protocols circumvented in this case just for the sake of brevity and speed? For instance, we were advised a couple of days ago that it might take half an hour forensically per body to do those initial checks before the pathology later on. Was that thrown aside today simply to be able to get it done as quickly as possible?
Look, that's normally a question you'd put to the Chief Coroner, but I'm sure while I'm standing here I can say that that's entirely incorrect and that our coroners and our Chief Coroner are 100% diligent and professional.
Well, that's
Okay.
what I'm asking. I'm not asking about a lack of professionalism, I'm asking about expediency.
I think I've answered that question. They will stick to the requirements.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it's an ongoing operation, so if you could please allow us to get back to the operation and we'll join you.
But on that point, we heard in the previous press conferences that the risk might mean that you can't stay on the island long enough to carry out the full recovering of evidence. So I think we're asking, were you able to have enough time with those bodies to get all the evidence you required, or were the risks meaning that you had to get off the island with those bodies in quick hours?
So I think that's a slightly different question, but I'm very happy to answer it. So there might be a need to return to the island at some safe point to recover any other evidence that might assist with identification. However, it's quite likely that forensics will enable us or forensic people with the sign-off from the Chief Coroner or the Coroner to do so.
Commissioner, do you still have a thought around going to the island? There may be some people now that think you've got the bulk of the bodies off there and someone might sort of launch their own endeavour again, or someone anywhere. I mean, anyone, even other folk. What are your thoughts around people going to the island?
Oh, look, I think that's a real issue. So our advice is, can you please leave it to us? As you've heard today from myself and Ryan, there's a lot of planning and there is some risk. It takes real preparation and care to do this. So I would suggest that anyone contemplating that leaves it to us. We do intend, and as I say, we'll be flying over that area this afternoon for a further reconnaissance, and we are right beside the island with our dive team as we speak. We are very focused on finding the other two and returning them to their loved ones.
Thank you, everybody. That's all we have time for.
Kia ora.
Earlier this week, do you think you should have come back a little bit earlier?
Pardon?
Do you regret coming back into New Zealand a little bit earlier from your overseas trip?
Actually, I regret being away at this time, but it's very unpredictable. No one can predict what occurred. Again, thanks for asking the question. I returned from, I was overseas giving a presentation. I returned as soon as I possibly could. It was a long way offshore, but I got back as soon as I could. And yeah, I very much would have preferred to be here at the time.
Sorry, Clinton, I know this is terrible. There's always one more question. Who did in fact try to retrieve that body on Tuesday? Who were those officials or people that were in there who did try to retrieve that body?
I think I know the answer to that, Paul. Can I get back to you with the exact detail on that? Because I'd hate to get it wrong.
Do you need my number? No. You can't sort of even give us a rough ballpark who that might have been?
I think it was between New Zealand Defence Force staff and police staff. I think the DDR was involved and one of the vessels from New Zealand Defence Force. But can I confirm that to you later on?
Thank you.
And with Joe, so if I invite Joe to close with a karakia.
Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki a ihu karaiti, me te aroha te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake ake, amene. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Chair.
Thank you.